What's going on, guys? Your boy Amazing. We're back with another video, and in today's video, guys, I'm gonna be doing the updated festival tier list ranking list here, guys. So I wanted to make this video since Purgatory Bond came out, and I've missed, I think it was about 2 festivals since my last one, if I'm not mistaken. So I wanted to make an updated one to let you guys know where I think each character is placed and how I think they should be placed on the tier list here. So we have it 1 to 8, all 8 festivals in the game. I don't think I missed any festival in the game. Las Vegas was a bit, yeah. I think it's all in order of release, and then I haven't missed any single festival, I don't think. So let's hop in. We're going to be doing the first character here, Meliodas. Before we actually hop into the video, though, make sure to subscribe to your boy Amazing. We are on the road to 20k subscribers. At the time of recording this video, I'm at 10,100 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Turn on post notifications if you want to stay up to date with anything 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross related. And with that out of the way, let's hop into the video. Alrighty, let's hop into Meliodas. Let's go over his kit, and then I'll basically give you guys where I think he should be placed on the tier list. So Meliodas was the first ever festival to come out on 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross, and to this day he's not that bad. Like, I mean, in terms of how good he is, right? He's good for a lot of content in the game. I think Meliodas in most PvE content can take out all of it really fairly easily. PvP, on the other hand, I don't think he really has a place anymore. Alt Rush for him isn't really, like, you know, the best, because I think there's other units that can just like take him out instantly, and that can take like, you know, they don't really need to worry about Meliodas. I think also Meliodas' ultimate got power creeped with Purgatory bonds recently, so there isn't really, you know, there's really much like reason to run over like Purgatory bond, let's say, right? Let's go to his CC ranking actually. Because I want to see how high Meliodas is ranked in the CC, right? Let's see. Oh, here we are, right here. Real image, alter ego, Meliodas. So he is still fairly high in the CC ranking. So I mean, if you're gonna run Meliodas, at least he has beefy CC, right? That's the good thing about the festival units, is that a lot of them have really good CC. So if you run in the backline on like a Glue Eater team, that's gonna make your team have super nice CC. To actually go first, right? I think that's fairly important. I mean, if you're running in PvP. But yeah, so we'll go over his kit, and then I'll give you guys the ranking where I believe he needs to be. So first skill, he's going to inflict damage equal to 500% of attack on one enemy and fills the ultimate move gauge by 2 orbs. So basically the same as Green Escanor's single target card, if you know that. His second skill is going to be inflicting charge damage equal to 325% of attack on all enemies. Charge ignores defense on like when doing the attack, so you know, you bypass defense, you go straight and just hit them. Like, it's pretty hard. Like, charge actually does a lot of damage. But yeah. And then for his passive here, Rebate increases the rank of all the hero's skills when the hero takes critical damage during the enemy turn. So every time he takes critical damage, he's going to be ranking up his skills, which obviously all these skills, like, you know, one ranked up, they become super broken. And then for his ultimate here, he's going to inflict Secret Technique damage equal to 300% of attack on all enemies and deals damage with attribute advantage regardless of the attribute. Secret Technique does 20% additional damage per hero skill, and that can actually scale up to 60% at 6 out of 6, and the damage multiplier itself can actually scale up to 450% at 6 out of 6. So if you eventually get to 6 out of 6, he's not too bad. I think all PvE content in the game, can kind of cheese with his ultimate as well, and there is some like stuff in the game where you kind of need a 6/6, like a few stages on the tower also have like a really hard stage where you gotta run 6/6 Meliodas. So yeah, that's just my little take on Meliodas there. Where do I think he is ranked on the tier list here? I'm gonna give Meliodas the 7th slot, and the reason I'm giving Meliodas the 7th slot here is because of you know, he's not really that good in PvP anymore. PvE, he's very good. Other than that, there isn't really other notable things about Meliodas. Unfortunately, this is just how like gacha games work. There's just power creep, and since Meliodas was the first festival in the game, he hasn't really aged as well as the other festivals. Alright, so the next festival we're going to be going over is going to be Goddess Elizabeth. So Goddess Elizabeth, I think, is the most well-aged festival we've ever had in the game. She came out on the 1st year anniversary for JP Grand Cross, so it's almost been a year now since her release on JP. So, or no, it's been about a year actually. So now that she's been out for basically a year, we can kind of, you know, see how well she's fared. But yeah, Goddess Elizabeth, she is the blue typing in Goddess race. For her first skill here, she's going to cancel stances on one enemy and inflict damage equal to 250% of attack, then stuns for 2 turns. So basically, she can take out the enemy for 2 turns, make it so that they can't do anything, and stun is a lot better than petrify because you can still apply dissolve, you can still apply attack seal, all the debuffs that you could not apply like against a petrify, you can apply on a stun, which is really, really good. For her second skill here, she's going to create a barrier around all allies equal to 300% of attack for 2 turns, takes damage only from basic stats when attacked, excluding rupture. So basically how this this barrier works is that it nullifies all skill effects in the game and you only take raw attack or HP percentage damage. So like if you're running Last Name Meliodas and you use the charge card, charge is not going to be applied on this shield. You're only going to be getting the raw damage number from his card, right? You're not going to be bypassing that with charge. So yeah, really broken shield, really good stun card, right? For passive here, when an ally dies, they are revived with the same amount of HP they had before dying. Limit once, applies when entering battle. Dying from reflect effect nullifies revive and uses it up. So basically, Goddess Elizabeth is the only character in the game, other than Melascula being weird and having the different type of revive. Goddess Elizabeth is the only character in the game that can apply a actual revive on a character, regardless of who it is, right? Like they could die and then instantly they'll be back at full health if they died at full health. That's just how good Goddess Elizabeth can be for the team. And then her ultimate here, she's going to recover HP of all allies equal to 30% of max HP, reflects 40% of the damage taken over 2 turns, then heals half of the damage reflected. So basically, it has lifesteal on the heal, or on the reflect, which is cracked. Reflect starts at 40%, scaling up to 120%, so more than double damage, at 6 out of 6, right? She's also getting 70% of max HP heal at 6 out of 6, which is obviously very broken. So as you guys can see here, Goddess Elizabeth as a character has stood the test of time. Let's check her CC ranking here. Her CC ranking is also higher than Last Name Meliodas. She is basically, I think she barely made the top 10, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, she barely made the top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so yeah, she barely slipped out of it, I guess. But Goddess Elizabeth, 11th highest character in the game for CC, right? Very useful. You can have her as a link if you get her 6 out of 6. If you want to use her on the team, very good unit on the team because she's got the revive, she got the stun, she got the shield, she got the reflect. Everything about Goddess Elizabeth's kit I think is like top tier. Everything about her kit is top tier, right? So my ranking for Goddess Elizabeth, I'm gonna give her, and this is by the way guys, this tier list is all content, by the way. It's not just like relegated to just PvP or PvE. I wanted to make this tier list basically everything in the game, right? So my ranking for Goddess Elizabeth, she's gonna go in the 2nd slot. And the reason she's gonna be the 2nd highest in the game is just because she's aged so well. She really is just such a good unit. Stun, is always something that'll last a long time in the game. Revive until its power creep is going to be really good. Not many units have this shield in the game. I think, I don't know, is it only Goddess Elizabeth actually? I think it might actually be only Goddess Elizabeth. Well, yeah, no, it might, okay, it might only be Goddess Elizabeth that has this shield. I know other characters get the shield through like effects on their ultimate and stuff like that, like Ludo and Festival Merlin, but I don't think they have it as a actual card. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below, but that's kind of crazy. That card has stood the test of time. Her reflect ultimate is broken. It's actually broken. 6 out of 6. I'm telling you, if people attack into you and don't kill your Goddess Elizabeth, you're dying from reflect instantly. I've done it multiple times in PvP. People have attacked into my Goddess Elizabeth, they've died from reflect. You can also use this in PvE to cheese people, like to cheese boss fights. If you like, I've actually soloed hard Belmoth with Goddess Elizabeth reflect. That's how cracked she can be, man. She is very broken, so she's deserving of the 2nd slot here. The next festival unit we're gonna be going over is gonna be Festival King. So the small winged king, right? I think Winged King, as a character, I don't think he's aged the best. Kind of like Lost Vein, he's in this like the same scenario as him. We can actually check his CC ranking as well. But Festival King is in the top 10 of CC ranking. He used to be number 1 above all the characters in the game before, you know, a bunch of other characters started releasing. Festival King was really a beefy CC character unit. He is in the top 10, by the way, above Tarmiel, Chandler, Goss Elizabeth, you know, Lost Vein Meliodas. They have increased the amount of CC that the festivals had over time. And I think it's very beneficial because of that. Because then, you know, once you get them 6 out of 6 and you get their outfits, you can kind of run them as like backlines in PvP for CC. Or you can you could just run them as Link, which is really good. So let's go over Festival King here. He is blue attribute, fairy race. For his first skill here, he's going to inflict damage equal to 450% of attack on one enemy and releases 130%. Release does deal additional damage using remaining damage in shock, poison, and bleed debuffs. So this is going to coincide super well with his second skill here, which is going to be inflicting damage equal to 205% of attack on all enemies, poisons for 3 turns. So it's going to be applying the poison effect. And then for Festival King's passive here, enemies with 2 or more of the effects poison, bleed, shock, and corrosion become unable to remove debuffs using recovery skills. If there are 3 of the above debuffs, additionally decrease 1 gauge from the ultimate gauge of the end at the end of the ally's turn. So basically, Festival King is able to be kind of like a go through dissolve. He's able to do that if he has all 3 or 4 of those debuffs applied, right? 2 or more of the debuffs actually. So if he's getting poison and then someone else drops a bleed card or something like that, it's gonna be able to actually make the enemy not have a cleanse, right? And then if you have 3 debuffs applied on the enemy, they're not gonna be able to gain their ultimate, which is kind of good, man. It is kind of good. Yeah, very good. And then the ultimate here is going to inflict damage equal to 300% of attack on all enemies, gain Abyss effect, and takes 50% less damage for 2 turns. Abyss is going to inflict additional damage equal to 60% of damage dealt on all enemies at the start of the enemy's turn. Only applies the Abyss effect on the last used hero. And Abyss multiplier itself can actually scale up to 60% at 6 out of 6, right? Which is very good. And then the multiplier for the ultimate itself scales up to 450%. So overall, like, I think the best thing out of Festival King's kit, regardless of how synergistic his like first part is, I think his ultimate is the best place for Festival King, because there's multiple places in the game where you can use his ultimate. In the SA coin dungeon stage, he is very useful for that, because you can drop the ultimate, next turn they die instantly from the Abyss effect. His ultimate has a lot of uses in PvE. You know, regardless of what his like first skills do, his ultimate is probably one of the best ultimates in the game. I'd say it's definitely up there. It's basically a better secret technique if you really think about it, because you're doing the 450% initially, and then you're taking 50% less damage taken, and then you're also doing a 60% additional damage on top of the initial damage you did, and it takes 2 times, by the way. It takes 2 times, right? Which is actually broken. So Festival King, really good unit. I think over time, though, he has fallen off in terms of usability. In PvP, you don't really see the Festival King team anymore. And if you want to run his passive, you need to bring Demon Hendrickson along with him. So alone, he's not very good as a unit. But I think that his uses in PvE and how powerful his ultimate can be, also his CC being higher than Lost Veins, I think I'm going to give Festival King the 6th place on this tier list because of that. Because overall, nowadays, if you really are going to use one of these festivals and not use them for their actual purpose, you are going to run them as CC. And Festival King is higher, and also his ultimate is just better than Lost Veins, like straight up, right? So that's going to be Festival King right there. Moving on to the one Escanor. The one Escanor, the basically the first year anniversary unit for global, but he was like the 1.5 year for JP. The one Escanor, man, he is still to this day probably one of the best characters in the game. Because he has like some of the most broken effects in the game. His passive is cracked, and his ultimate is super dope. So let's actually just go over his kit here. So SSR rarity, blue attribute, human race. For his first skill here, he's going to inflict flood damage equal to 500% of attack on one enemy. Flood does additional 0.8% damage for every percent of remaining HP on self. So basically, if the one Escanor is full HP, he's going to be doing 80% additional damage. Cracked, so broken on that flood card, right? His second skill is just going to be a raw 600% attack single target, which is really good because 600% of attack is the highest damage multiplier on a card in the game. The only other characters that have this, I think, are like Counter Melee and Red Derriere, if I'm not mistaken. There's probably other characters that have it, but those are the ones off the top of my head. For his passive here, the 1 applies 1 buff effect, which increases all stats by 6% at the start of the ally's turn. When there are 3 stacks of this effect, the hero removes debuffs and gains debuff immunity for 1 turn. After that, the stack buffs are removed one by one. Only 1 effect is left, adding buffs to stack again. So basically how it works is that the 1 Eskinor is going to become the 1. He's going to go up from 1 stack to 3 stacks, and then from 3 stacks down to 1 stack, back up to 3 stacks. It's basically, it just repeats. It just goes up and down, up and down. So that's basically how the 1's passive works. And he's just getting all stats 6% at the start of every turn. Debuff immunity on the turn 3. Just so broken. His ultimate here, he's going to inflict damage equal to 720% of attack on 1 enemy, then inflicts additional death damage. Death is going to be 100% of the final damage as additional damage, and that's at 6 out of 6 as a multiplier. So at 1 out of 6, the multiplier is 20% death damage, so the ultimate isn't that crazy at 1 out of 6, but 6 out of 6 is doing double damage, and the multiplier for the card itself, or for the ultimate, becomes 1080%. So you're doing 2000 and, what is that? 2160% damage on the ultimate there, and the death effect can actually hit another enemy too, by the way, which is actually just broken. So overall, I think the 1 Eskinor is like super broken in the game. His CC ranking as well, he is the 3rd highest CC character in the entire game. So if you're running him for a CC purpose, then the 1 Eskinor is definitely one of the best characters for that. And because of that, I'm gonna have to give him a really high placing on the tier list. So the 1 Eskinor, because of everything I explained there, he's gonna be in the 3rd slot. And the reason I believe he's in the 3rd slot, not above Goslibit in number 1 or on the same tier as her, is because the 1 Eskinor, he may be good in PvE and PvP, but Goslibit is just so much better in all content in the game, right? The 1 Eskinor does struggle in content where he has to fight people using AoE cards because he doesn't have any AoE. Goslibit doesn't have AoE either, but she does have the Reflect ultimate, which can affect all enemies on the opposing field, right? Which I think is going to be a lot more beneficial than even the 1, like him doing like that much damage, right? So that's going to be the 1 Eskinor right there. Moving on, we got Assault Mode Meliodas. So everyone hypes up Assault Mode Meliodas. We need more demons. We need more demons. Yeah, Assault Mode, he's really good, man. I think he's probably aged the best in terms of how much ultimates, like dupes you need for the character. Because I don't think Assault Mode, you really need that many dupes for him to work. His ultimate is not as reliant as the other festivals for dupes. But yeah, let's actually hop into Assault Mode Meliodas. So his rarity is going to be SSR, he's green attribute, and he is demon race. For his first skill here, he's going to inflict rupture damage equal to 250% of attack on all enemies. Rupture deals ×2 damage against buffed enemies, so this was meant to kind of counter the Liz shield. Double damage on the Liz shield. Pretty nice right there. For his second skill here, he's going to inflict amplified damage equal to 450% attack on 1 enemy. So this is basically, you know, damage dealt plus 30% per active buff on self. So the more buffs you have on Assault Mode Meliodas, the more damage he's going to be outputting, right? Which is really nice. And then for his passive here, if all allies are demons or those with commandments, increase own stats by 5% and decrease defense related stats of all enemies by 15% for 2 turns when allies take damage. Limit 5 times applies when entering battle. So Assault Mode, when you're running him with a full commandment or demon team, he's going to be increasing his own stats by 5% up to 5 times, right? So you're going to be getting 25%, you know, of all stats all around, which is already higher than the 1 Eskinor, right? And then you're also getting defense related stats applied on the enemy for 2 turns every time you increase your own like you know, all your stats. So you're applying, I think 15, what is that, 15 times 5, I think that's like 70% if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, my math is not very good, but you are lowering the enemy's defense related stats by a lot, right? It's just really good. And then Assault Mode Meliodas' ultimate, as I explained, it doesn't need the most amount of dupes because it doesn't scale as high as the other like festival units. But his ultimate is going to be increases the hero's basic stats by 50% for 3 turns and inflicts 350% of attack on all enemies. So the reason I said that this ultimate doesn't need dupes as much as the other festivals is because the basic stat increase of 50% never changes. The only thing that changes is the damage from the ultimate itself. So the multiplier of the ultimate itself is going to scale up to 525% of attack at 6 out of 6. So Assault Mode Meliodas, man, overall I think he's very good for PvE content. In PvE, he's able to solo basically everything in the game. You could bring him solo and he does the work. Like there's multiple like instances of Assault Mode being able to solo content in PvE just because of how his passive works. Because if you have him alone, that counts as him being alone with demons and commandments because he himself is a demon. You can also run him in PvP, which, you know, the Assault Mode team over time has kind of fallen off a little bit, I'd say. He does need a lot of support in PvP. He's kind of like Festival King, where he needs like Hendrickson, but for him he's gonna need like a taunt unit, and then also like a unit that can kind of sustain him, right? So I think overall, Assault Mode as a character, he's very good, but he isn't really like the best character out there. He's probably, you know, middle of the tier here. So I'm gonna give Assault Mode Meliodas the 5th slot on the tier list here. And if you actually go over to the CC ranking as well, he is the 4th highest CC character in the entire game. He has some of the highest HP in the game as well, like being 80,000. Like it's like barely lower than the one Eskinor, right? He is missing a weapon still as well, so you know this could change. Assault Mode could be higher than the one Eskinor when he does get his weapon, but I mean we'll have to see here. But overall, like Assault Mode Meliodas, I think he's very fitting of the middle like tiers here for the tier list, and he's a very good unit, man. Assault Mode Meliodas is very sick. Moving on, we have Lolly Merlin here. Lolly Merlin, I think, is a very good unit. The only reason I'd say she's kind of fallen off in terms of PvP would be because of Purgatory Bond, because he is just actually cracked. But let's go over Merlin here and explain why she's, you know, a pretty good unit here. So, SSR rarity, green attribute, unknown race. For her first skill here, she's going to inflict power strike damage equal to 475% of attack on one enemy. Power strike is additional damage equal to the enemy's resistance. So, however high the enemy's resistance is, the more power strike is going to do. For her second skill here, she's going to inflict damage equal to 280% of attack on all enemies and infects for 2 turns. Infects is going to restrict recovery related stats. So any lifesteal, any starter turn healing, anything like that, like the diminished HP healing, anything like that is not going to be applied for infect, because infect's just going to block that, right, which is really good. And then for Merlin's passive here, the hero's damage taken from skills during the enemy's turn does not exceed 40% of max HP, increases attack related stats by 1% for every 4% of remaining HP when using skills. So Merlin kind of has like, it's like a kind of like an influx effect on her passive. So the more HP you have, the more attack related stats you have, and so that's going to be scaling up to 25% at max HP, which is fairly good, right? Fairly good. So you know, Merlin's not too bad of a unit right there. I think she is very good. And then for ultimate here, she's going to inflict damage equal to 400% of attack on all enemies and creates a barrier around all allies equal to 5% of damage, taking damage only from basic stats, excludes rupture effects. So this is what I was talking about before with Goddess Elizabeth's shield. This ultimate has the Goddess Elizabeth shield, but it's equal to the amount of damage that Merlin does on the ultimate. So the barrier scales up to 20% at 6 out of 6, and the ultimate itself scales up to 600% at 6 out of 6 as well. So overall, I think Merlin is a fairly good unit, and I think on the unknown race team, she can do really well in PvP. In PvE, she's able to tank like any hit in the game, no matter how strong the boss is. She's guaranteed to not exceed more than 40% max HP damage taken. So Merlin herself in PvE content can cheese a lot of content in the game just because she can never die, as long as you're, you know, taking 40% damage taken. If you have a healer, you can just heal it up, and Merlin's back at like full HP. She'd have to take 40% again to lose any, you know, like damage, which is really good. So overall, I think for PvP and PvP viability, Merlin is still really good in PvP. The only thing that kind of sucks is that Purgatory Bond, since its release, has kind of cucked Merlin's usage in PvP a little bit. But you know, that's not really that much of a hindrance. Also on the CC ranking here, she is the 5th highest CC character in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, she's 6. She's 6. 1, 2, yeah. She's 6th highest in the game, which is fairly good, because I think she's missing, I don't know, is she missing a weapon? Oh, she might be missing a weapon or a headpiece. I'm not too sure on that. But she is missing like one thing there. But very beefy. Merlin is really good. I'm going to give Merlin the 4th slot on the tier list here. We have 2 more slots remaining. You guys can kind of see where this is going. I'm just going to put them in the slots where they're supposed to be, and then we're actually just going to discuss where they, the reasons why I believe so for each. So let's go over Zeldas real quick. Zeldas, the reason I put him in the bottom of the tiers is because he is a support type unit for Assault Mode Meliodas. He really is. And like the thing that sucks is that Zeldas is fairly good, you know, because he is a festival unit. He was built to be like somewhat good. He's not the worst character out there. I'm not gonna say he's like, you know, the worst like of like actual characters in the game. He's definitely the worst festival, but that doesn't make him a bad character, right? SSR rarity, green attribute, demon race. For his first skill here, he's going to inflict cleave damage, which does not activate crit damage equal to 500% of attack on one enemy. Cleave is additional damage equal to half of the critical damage percentage. So half of his critical damage is going to be how much damage increase he has on the cleave card. So he's going to be getting about, what is that, 92.5% critical damage on top of his, like, you know, cleave card, and it's not going to crit, right?
And then his second skill here, which is a very good skill, by the way, underrated. Like, a lot of people sleep on this, because this can bypass Liz Shield, by the way. On rank 3, applies an effect which depletes ultimate move gauge by 2 orbs at the end of the enemy's turn for all enemies for 2 turns, right? Then restricts the use of ultimate moves. So you can't use your ultimate, and you're losing your gauge. So regardless, you're losing your ultimate. So I'm just gonna apply that on a rank 2, by the way, for 1 turn, which is fairly good. On rank 1 is just applying the dissolve, but this can bypass Liz Shield because you're not doing damage with the card, which is really good. For his passive right here, he's going to inflict, increase the ally's basic stats by 2% for every debuff applied on all enemies, limit 10 times. Not too crazy of a passive. I think Red Zeldris' passive overall is going to be a lot better. But, you know, it does have its uses, and you can run Zeldris on other teams regardless of, like, being on an assault mode team. You can run him on multiple other teams, and he still does really well because of this, like, passive he has here, because it does work in the backline. And then for his commandment here, if a critical strike occurs from skill used, decreases crit chance and crit damage of the target by 10%, applies to both allies and enemies when entering battle, excludes deathmatch, stacks up to 3 times. This effect is a great debuff, so you cannot cleanse it. This was meant to kind of counter the one Eskinor's crit damage he does on the opposing, like, assault mode team. I don't think it was that much of a buff though, like, at the end of the day, like, you know, this commandment kind of sucks to use, honestly. Like, I think when you use this with assault mode, you're cucking assault mode's crit chance and crit damage by 30% at max, which kind of sucks. So I think overall, like, that commandment isn't going to be really the best. But then Zeldris' ultimate here is going to inflict damage equal to 630% of attack on one enemy, and decreases all enemies' HP related stats by 5% for 2 turns. The multiplier for the debuff itself can scale up to 15% at 6 out of 6, and the damage multiplier can scale up to 945% of attack. So overall, that's why Zeldris kind of is in the bottom tier. In PvE, he doesn't have much uses, honestly. Like, I don't think his, like, viability in PvE is going to be that crazy. In PvP, he's only viable on the assault mode team, and assault mode right now is kind of taking a hit. He's not the very best team in the game anymore, like he used to be. But yeah, I mean, Zeldris does have his uses in some cases in PvP. You can run him on debuff teams. He does have his use, but unfortunately, he is the worst festival in the game at the moment, man. Unfortunately, he's a support type unit, guys. He's a support type unit. He wasn't meant to be like a crazy DPS or anything, so unfortunate for Zeldris. But the final character that I put in the #1 tier, the best festival in the game, is going to be given to the Purgatory Bond. And the reason I give Purgatory Bond the best festival character in the game, off rip, he is the best for PvE content. All PvE content he can wash instantly. In PvP, he's broken too. He's probably the best PvP character at the moment, and all of his skills scale off of max HP, and we'll go over this in his kit because of how powerful it can be. Max HP scaling with Purgatory Bond is so broken, man. So let's start. Purgatory Bond is SSR rarity, red attribute, human race. For his first skill here, he's going to inflict detonate damage equal to 21% of the hero's max HP on all enemies. Detonate is 20% additional damage per orb on the target's ultimate move gauge. So basically, the more orbs you have on the enemy's ultimate move gauge, the more damage this detonate card's going to do, which is really good. It does so much damage. If you guys have seen Purgatory Bond in action, he does so much damage on this card, man. It's actually insane. And then his second skill here, which is called Gift, is going to apply an effect on all allies, which restores 50% diminished HP at the start of the ally's turn for 3 turns, and increases max HP by 30% at rank 3. Really good, man. You're increasing your max HP by 30%, which is coinciding with his first skill because it's doing max HP damage, you know, based on max HP. So already, you guys can kind of see where Purgatory Bond's going here, in that he's able to, you know, he's able to be very good in terms of how much damage he can do, right? And then for his passive, every time the hero's ultimate move gauge fills by 1 orb for using, moving, or ranking up skills, the hero's max HP increases by 8% up to 5 times for 3 turns, and removes all stat decreases effects from self. So Bond is going to be able to cleanse, debuff stats that are applied onto Purgatory Bond. He's able to cleanse that. He's also able to increase his max HP by 8% up to 5 times. So 8 times 5, what is that? 40%, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But I think it's 40%, right? So that's really good. And then for his ultimate here, which is, you know, probably the best thing in his kit, inflicts damage equal to 30% of max HP on all enemies. At 6 out of 6, it gains the skill Rupture, which Rupture is ×2 damage against buffed enemies. So against a Liz shield, you're dying instantly. Like, Purgatory Bond is gonna one-shot through the Liz shield. It doesn't matter like what you have. If you have one buff on yourself, you're taking double damage, and it's doing 45% of max HP. You know, broken, that is AoE. This is AoE, by the way. Ultimate is AoE. This first card is AoE. Purgatory Bond is actually disgusting. Also, another thing to note is he is the highest CC character in the entire game. So if you're running him as Link, he's going to be the highest CC. If you're running him on the field, he's going to have the highest CC of any character in the game. Purgatory Bomb, man, he is deserving of the #1 slot. PvE content, he solos all that. PvP content, he is the best PvP character in the game at the moment, in my opinion, right? But yeah, that's basically the tier list, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below of my ranking here. Do you think this is wrong? You know, how would you guys go about ranking the characters of the festival units on the tier list here? Again, at the end of the day, this is my opinion, so you know, everything is subject to change depending on like how characters are, and also this is my opinion on the characters themselves. But that's gonna be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe as always. If you guys want to see more videos like this, definitely let me know in the comment section below, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Peace out and have a great rest of your day.